So basically, I think with anything we do in the maths classroom or in a classroom, starts with a problem. And my problem was, when it came to this, how do I engage a group of Year 12 General 1 mathematics students and make the course content that they're doing relevant to them? The particular group of students I was working with had openly told me that they picked the subjects because it was the only one left on the line. And that was it. And I thought, right, what am I going to do here? And so I actually asked them all, before I began teaching anything, I started by asking them what they want to do when they finish school. What is it you want to achieve? And they said, I had a couple say, oh, I want to be a nurse. I want to be a musician. I want to be a police officer. I had some who said, I have absolutely no idea what I want to do. And I thought, okay, how can I take advantage of this information and basically make the mathematics relevant to their career pathways? So I started thinking, and I started with the police officer, and I got me thinking, okay, what do? They book people for speeding, they check everyone's blood alcohol, make sure we're safe on the roads. And then I thought, oh, you know, I have seen them on the news at crime scenes with their forensic tape. And that really got me thinking. So hands up in here, who's watched an episode of Bones, Criminal Minds, NCIS, CSI, any of those crime fighting shows? Yeah, okay, right. So a whole lot of people. And that's where my inspiration began. So I started by watching episode 10 of Bones and realised that behind the scenes there is actually a lot of mathematics involved in forensic investigations. So I started researching the different stages and seeing what other teaching tools were out there around forensics. And then it was a matter of me sitting down with the syllabus and saying, is there any way I can make what I've learned about this forensics fit with the syllabus? And it did. So my solution, or what I did, was I created a website, okay, which is on the top of your page, and it is the mathematics behind the forensics and investigation. Now, I developed the website so it allows students to basically step through a forensic investigation, and it allows students to utilise their problem solving and reasoning skills, as well as provide them with different ways to engage in the 3 strands. So it combines sort of number and algebra, measurement, geometry, statistics and probability. And it pulls in elements of all of that. So the website itself is broken up into 10 stages, okay, or 10 pages. So there's 10 stages to the investigation, and you can see them all listed there. And the website link is at the top of the handout. And each sort of stage has a series of activities for students to engage with. There's a few different ways you can go about it. With my group of students, there were certain sections we did together, and there were sections that they worked through in their small groups themselves. Before I sort of got started with the investigation, I did actually decide to show them an episode of Bones, or part of the middle part where they're actually investigating, because that really started, and I paused it, and they were able to then identify themselves where the mathematics behind forensics was. And that really helped them, I guess, dive in to looking at or getting involved in the investigation. So what I'll do now, I'm going to pick 2 of the pages to have a look at and give you a bit of an idea of what you can find. So time of death, okay, looks like this, and it has all the evidence, okay. And with this particular page, this is one of the ones that I did with a group, like as a whole class. And I did actually have the evidence. They pulled the shirt out of the bag and they were actually looking at it all. And we asked the question, it started a bit of a discussion, you know, what could have happened? What has happened here? And I said, how can we use this evidence to sort of help us think about time of death, about our murder victim and what time they've died, basically. And it started a bit of a class discussion, and they worked out, okay, well, the watch may have stopped at the time the person was murdered. While this is a big assumption, they were able to use that to get a rough idea of when this might have happened. They then could use that if we go further down once they've examined all of the evidence. The rate at which a deceased body decreases in temperature is actually a linear relationship. So decrease is 1.5 degrees Celsius for every hour until it reaches the ambient room temperature, and then it's no longer linear. But for the purposes of this with my General 1 class, it worked really nicely. So here you can see that if you click on them, all of the resources are either docx or they're PDFs, and each of them, if it's not going to open, but each of them, this is just one of the worksheets that you can see, and it just steps them through. It's like scaffolded for them so that they can work through it. All of these are on the website, so you can download them, and the ones in DocX, then you can change them and make them, I guess, suitable for your classroom. Yeah, so and then the other page that I will show you is bullet trajectory. Okay, while this is the other one I did as a whole class, the other pages are a little bit more, I guess, easier for students to work through in small groups or independently. But while we can see bullet trajectory here forms more of a curve, for the purposes of my class and the group of students I was working with, we did just look at the linear sort of side of it. And actually to get them involved and to get them, going with it, I went and got a skeleton from science. We wedged the bullet between the 9th and 10th rib, which is where it's found in our victim. And then the students actually manipulated the skeleton. They put it standing out, lying down. They didn't know where it was. And so then they could also position themselves as the murderer and work out where they could have been standing for the bullet to have entered the body at that angle. Okay? And what this allowed them to do was they then went and they did an investigation and they created different scenarios. They sketched the scenario, then they had to use mathematics. They used trig, they used Pythagoras, their knowledge of angles and things like that to help them work out where the victim was when they were shot and then where the assailant would have been standing. But yeah, and on the website there is a teacher's notes page which you can click on, and it just has a breakdown of the topics that are on each web page that you can look at. As an assessment for this unit, I did do a test, and that was because of the constraints of the time that I had and the fact that the scope and sequence was already written, because I picked this class up in term 1 of last year, so they'd already sort of had their first topic and the assessment schedule was already laid out. If I was to probably do it again, I'd do a portfolio task and get them to submit the bits and then get them to do a report at the end to actually explain to me how they knew who the victim was and how they knew who the assailant was. But yeah, that's everything.